wait for it to start. Okay, so basically, you can spot here all the documents, all the content which has been extracted by this block text acquisition is sent to two different entities. One entity is a storage entity where we have kept all these documents images, right? So whatever we have gathered from the any source, it could be a web or anything, whatever we have gathered, we have performed some kind of conversion. Conversion is one of the steps we have discussed, that whatever content we have gathered, we need to perform some kind of conversion, because we cannot save HTML page as it is. You need to perform some kind of processing, right? So in this conversion process, it could be a simple templating, reverse templating, or it could be a simple compression also, because you have to store all these details into a particular database, right? Here we are referring as a document data store, but naturally, because it is a storage space, you need to have some models, you need to have some structure. So all these data which we have gathered, all this web content which we have gathered, need to fit into that particular template or that particular template structure, right? So that for that purpose, we are performing this conversion process. uh, Most of the cases this conversion is not required. It is required only in the case of uh, web crawling. Whenever we have internet web or world web as a web resource or a web source, there you need to perform conversion process. Whenever we are having this text desktop search system, we do not need to perform this conversion, right? Because it is a local system. If you are having set of PDF files as an input and you need to perform some kind of crawling mechanism, there you don't need to perform any kind of conversion, right? So it depends on the scenario. You do not need to perform conversion process in all cases, right? So after getting all these things, gathered things stored into the data document store, concurrently, you have sent all these details, all these collected details into the text transformation phase, text transformation block. Now, why we need to perform this? Because text acquisition block have collected all these contents from the input source, right? And these contents which we have collected, either we have this impression that yes, we can send all these gathered details to the indexer block. Indexer block will be naturally preparing all these terms, all these content information in some other efficient storage, efficient way of arrangement, right? Because based on these index terms, we will be performing the search process, matching process, right? So what we have done before sending, or instead of sending these all gather details from the internet or maybe from any repository to the index block, we are going to perform some transformation, some processing on the gathered data. Naturally, the purpose of this text transformation is to make whatever content we have gathered, we are performing some layer up, some form of processing on these content, these data we have collected, to make whole search process, which will be happening in the future, whole search process on the same data efficient. That is one part. Efficient, simple, right, and accurate, right? So if you have gathered a web page, HTML code, a website, URL, anything, metadata, or maybe kind of any information which we have gathered from the internet, because web, so if you are taking internet or maybe world web, that could be the worst case, that could be the maximum possible case for a text acquisition block, right? A minimum will be your local desktop. So you could have a range of web sources, range of sources for your text acquisition block. So we are taking internet as a web source as the worst case or the most complex scenario. IGS could be your local desktop system, right? So if you gather all the information in the internet and try to perform some indexing onto it, it will be a complex situation. That's one part. It will be not facilitating a accurate search system. It will not be facilitating a very relevant search results to the user, right? So to make whole search process, whole ranking mechanism, whole accuracy uh, in a good scale, you need to perform some sort of text processing. And these text processings are called text transformation because whatever content we have gathered, whatever text we have gathered, we are now transforming into the different representation, different sets, right? So it will be like you are basically removing all the noises. So you are noises means there are some text components, text elements available in this gathered details, gathered data, which will not be having any role, which will not be having any role during the search process, during the match process, right? So it is very, so because whatever we are planning, whatever text processing we are planning, we should be having this with respect to the matching and ranking process, right? It is very important step. So in some cases it is not necessary to have this text transformation block at all, right? In some texts, in some search systems, or in some systems where search is facilitating as a process, it is not necessary to have this text transformation block at all, because data, whatever data we need to perform search, is already in the desired format. It is already containing all these details. So we do not need to perform text transformation, because the purpose of text transformation is to remove these unnecessary text components, right? So we will be going to discuss this text transformation block into probably next two lectures, right? So because whatever web content we have gathered, right, whatever we content data we have gathered, it could be having three main elements. One element is normally text, right? So if you gather the NIT websites, you could be having details about the institute, details about the different departments, detail about the courses, all these things. Along with it, you could have some web links. In the NIT website also, you could be having some websites, links to the next institution, next links to the different entities which are placed in the different websites. That's one thing. And the last part, you could be having some naming entities, or maybe you can say the individual's name, like faculty names, and their degrees details, all these things. So along with this text data, along with this data, simple data, plain text, you could be having URLs, web pages, or links. Second and third will be it could be name of any entity, right? So for this, whenever we are planning to design a text transformation or text processing block, you can clearly see we are having three different layers, right? So for a text transformation subsystem, naturally input for this block will be the output, the response, the content which is gathered by text acquisition block. So text acquisition block will be sending, it will be sharing or sending the gathered details in form of words. I'm saying words, or maybe collection of words. So whatever content we have gathered by text acquisition, it is in the form of collection or word collection, and this will be feeded, this will be sent to the text processing or text transformation block, where we will have parsing as a first component, right? Parsing is the very first component which will receive, or which will have these word collection, these gather content from the text acquisition block, and it will search, it will parse, it will basically rectify or resolve different words, different elements in the content, and basically based on its nature, based on its syntax, it will send to the particular component. So we have three elements after parsing. So typically parsing is referred as sometimes it is referred as a tokenization also. You can see tokenization means whatever inputs we are getting, we should be simply separating these tokens, separating these text elements or word elements or basically input elements into the form of tokens, right? So the purpose of placing parser element is to is to is to basically transform the given text or given word collection into the tokens. That is first purpose. Second purpose is to remove these spacing components, because in the text, if you see, there is the this presence of spaces between these two words, these two terms, all these things. So to remove this part of spacing and you can say the case sensitivity also, we will be using this parsing component. So in the text transformation, the very first element is the parser, right? So whatever input we are getting from text acquisition, it will be sent through parsing component, which will simply separate, take out each and every element and convert or say basically map into the name of tokens, right? And remove the spacing case sensitivity aspect from the text. And basically based on the nature of the token, it will send these tokens into three concurrent processing, right? One could be a simple text. So if it observes that, parser observes that the nature of token is a simple text, is a simple word, then it will be sending it to the further processing in two blocks, stopping and stemming, right? And if it this token, the syntax and the nature of observed token is the form of link or URLs, it will send it to the further processing, which is called link analysis and extraction, right? Naturally, within each block, after parsing, within each block we will have layers of processing. Like in the first case, we are performing stopping then stemming, right? So we have two layers. You cannot skip stopping, or you cannot skip stemming. You need to perform both. So after getting the tokens on the text, you will be or text will be going through these sub processes. And the second case, if the token is observed as a web link or the URL, it will be submitted to the second concurrent processing, which will call link analysis and extraction. So link analysis will be, naturally it will be having some mechanism to analyze the quality of link. To analyze the quality of link, it will be performing some algorithm. Like one of the algorithm is called page rank. So you might have some idea about that page rank algorithm. It is to basically analyze the quality. It is to analyze the rank. It is to analyze the basically importance of a link. And after that, it will be performing some extraction within that link, right? Similarly, there is a third possibility, third type of content or possibility, which is called metadata, right? So metadata is basically is nothing. It is a specific type of uh, tokens, specific type of text representation which used to be observed as entity. So for these type of tokens, if parser observe that this word is of nature metadata, this word is of syntax of metadata, it will send that token into the information extraction or information extractor component or a classifier, right? So basically we could have these concurrent track to be executed, to be performed in the text transformation after parsing phase, and eventually all these three components will be generating, all these three components or modules will be generating uh, the outcome in the form of terms, right? Terms and potential terms, because we have, so after applying this internal text processing from parsing to the this end, you will be denoising basically all the no it's irrelevant or noisy content from the provided input will be removed. So eventually at the end of text transformation, we will have some set of terms which are considered as the potential set of terms for indexing. So your index next, because next module is what index. So index module will be naturally performing some kind of ranking or some kind of weight management scheme, but the responsibility of text transformation block is to provide a refined or fine set of index terms which can be indexed, and here we are referring them as a index terms. So the outcome, you can see the outcome of text transformation or text processing block is the set of terms, set of potential terms which could be stored as an index term. And you can assume this fact that for any kind of search, these terms will be used, right? These terms which we have generated after text transformation phase will be used, will be stored in the index data to facilitate search, right? So whenever user will be posing any query to the search system, his query will be directly matched with these index terms, right? So that's why it is very critical to perform this text transformation, because the outcome of text transformation will be having direct implication on the search process, on the matching process, on the ranking process. Ranking process maybe have some dependence, some less dependence on these index terms, because a ranking of the results will be based on the occurrences of index terms, right? Because during this text transformation, we are not applying any preference or any scoring or any weighting scheme, right? We are simply getting tokens from the parser. We are further processing it to extract the details, extract the index terms, like extract the terms, and simply sending it to the index database system, index system. And index system will be assigning some weights, some ranks to each and every index term, right? So indexing component, which will be the focus of uh, uh, lectures after 2 or 3 lectures. So indexing process will be again assigning a weight. So indexing is the first component, or indexer is the first component which will have a ranking mechanism, which will have a weighting mechanism, right? So this index term will be receiving all the terms from the text transformation, and it will assign some weights, some weighting mechanism for these terms, and prepare a index database, right? So whenever user will be submitting a query to the search system, it will see first for the matching. So the user query will be matched with the index term, and based on the weight, based on the ranking of the index term in the next database, it will be ranked. That is the traditional way of doing. Naturally, you could have external ranking mechanism also, but traditionally in the very basic information system, search system also, we could have this mechanism of matching the index term at first, then ranking the results based on the rank, based on the weight of the index term in the index database, right? So here we have one important question, um, that can we place some, because these elements are the you can say the elementary parts of the text transformation. So whatever component we have placed here, like parser, from parser it is stopping and stemming, from parser it is link analysis and extraction, from parser it is information extractor and classifier. So these are the fundamental elements of a text transformation processing. So naturally you will be working on some domains of computer science. So in many domains, in many research domains, actually, this sometimes it is not required to perform text acquisition, but this text processing or text transformation is a very first, very mandatory. I mean, it is a mandatory step in many domains of computer science. So whenever you are dealing with some sort of text data or maybe the NLP related data, you are going to perform these kind of steps, right? So basically, so in NLP, natural language processing domain, if you are having text as an input, you need to perform this text processing, right? And one thing you should have a clarity on, that text processing and text mining are two different things, right? If you are performing text mining, if you are performing text mining, you do not need to perform these steps, right? Because these steps are required, these steps are used to prepare your text, and basically make your input text in a suitable form, which we are saying here as a terms or index terms, right? But in case of text mining, you have already stored the data in desired format, and you need to re-represent, the data in some other form, right? So you will be applying lot of algorithms. So suppose we have gathered these index term somehow on a database. Now you want to achieve some sort of classification, right? So if I've generated all these index terms with me, and now if you want to perform some classification, some clustering upon it, it will become text mining, right? So this part will be there, and if you add some sort of machine learning approach here to achieve some pattern or to achieve some nature or to expose some characteristics on the text, this part will be considered as a text mining, not whole, right? So you should be always have this separation, that text processing is one aspect, text mining is different perspective, different aspect, right? So text processing is a fundamental and elementary component of any search system. You need to have this clarity that you can design a information system without text acquisition, but you cannot skip this system. Text transformation is the mandatory. You should not be having any text, any information search system or any search system without this text processing component, because it is generating all these text details which we have with us in form of terms, which could be adopted as a index. And naturally each and every operation in a search system will be based on these index terms and their weighting schemes, right? So in the tomorrow lecture we will be discussing upon these each component. Naturally we will begin with discussing the first track. First track means after parsing, what we will be doing within the stopping component, and what we will be doing within stemming, right? So naturally you might have some idea about these terms, that stopping means what, stopping means what is the purpose, what is the internal working of stopping, and why it is necessary, and can we have our own stopping mechanism? Yes. Similarly, stemming is one of the process on the text, on the word. Can we have our own stemming mechanism? Can we skip this? So whenever we are designing a system, because from the last 10 or 15 last 5 or 6 lectures we are discussing all these components with respect to design a search system. So whenever we are discussing a system design perspective, you should always think about this particular possibility, that can we skip this component? Is it necessary? If it is necessary, can we adapt it in its own original form? Because it is one of the possible solution, or we may go for the modification into that component. So can we adapt this basic stemming mechanism, basic stemming algorithm, or we do need to perform some sort of modification into this standard stemming mechanism, right? So this is one particular track, one track in the text transformation. After getting the tokens, you will be going to perform stopping mechanism, you will be going to perform the stemming. After stemming, naturally we'll have index terms. Similarly, in the next next Monday lectures, next week lectures, we will be taking out this link analysis and information extractor classifier, right? So within this link analysis and extraction, we will be discussing about page rank algorithm and HITS algorithm, hits algorithms, right? Because these two algorithms are primarily designed to identify or to generate or give the uh, quality of a link, quality of a particular URL, web URLs, right? And after getting the quality, you could identify that which components, which part of the web URL should be extracted and identify as a index term, right? That's one part. So after that, we will be naturally discussing that how you can identify after getting the data into the form of parsing, how you can identify that okay, this part is considered as a metadata, this part is considered as a the entities, because you might have explored the internet and you have this term called entity resolution, right? So one of the research domain in the computer science is nowadays it is called entity resolution, right? So because based on these entity things, you can easily identify the individual's name, the name of institutions, the name of some some organization, or you can identify the name of some uh, basically working or so-called contributing individuals in a particular domain, right? So based on that, you can identify that okay, there are like if I give you a particular name, like you need to identify the entities in the sport domain, you need to identify the entities in the politics domain. So entities in the sport domain could be a player, could be a sporting body, could be an event name which is related to the sports. So this, for this identification of entity, you will be identifying first the property, first the metadata. So this is a very typical type of content which we have extracted from the net or from the world web, and it is very complex situation to extract these details and classify the details into the uh, during the text transformation or processing aspect, right? So these three are altogether three different tracks. Yes, wherever whatever content we have placed or extracted from the net, from the world web, these are the only three types of parallel tracks we could have during this text transformation. We don't need to have the fourth one. Naturally, within each track, we can place additional elements. Like in case of the very first track, where we have assuming that parsing, then stopping, and then stemming. After stemming, or maybe between stopping and stemming, you can place a small element to prepare your text, right? Similarly, within this link analysis and extraction, you could place a element, a text processing element, in basically in the last case also. But it is not necessary to place a additional fourth way of processing the text, right? And that is how we are assuming that for different search system, like for recommender system, you do not need to perform link analysis and extraction. You need to perform only, so if you are designing a recommender system, you need to perform parsing, stopping, stemming. That's one track. A second track is called information extractor and classifier, because you are getting the information about the product and their metadata, their related entities. So in the case of, in some cases, actually in the recommenders systems design, they are not having this stopping and stemming. They are having only this last block, last concurrent track. Similarly, if you are designing question answering based system, you need to perform only link analysis and stopping and stemming, right? If you're designing any personalized system, or maybe a voice enabled search system like Alexa or Siri we are having, you need to perform all these three, right? All these three, because it is basically searching for all these three possible types of content. So that's the important fact, that it always depends upon the situation for which we are designing the system, the search system or search process. We should be carefully thinking about the nature of the search system, nature of the search process which we will be providing, and based on that, you need to plug all these components, right? So with this, I'm closing today's lecture. It was a brief lecture just to highlight the importance of each component. And if you have anything to add, like, sir, are we going to discuss this part in, or we are going to discuss this particular phase into it, you can highlight or you can suggest me here, because this text processing is one